Welcome to another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you, as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Going to talk about the Chiefs draft and what makes it a success, right? What's going to have to happen? What are we going to have to see out of these players to 4 or 5 years from now, later, say, yeah, that was a good draft class. That was a great draft class. That was a bad draft class. We'll talk about that here. Which one of the Chiefs' picks will exceed their draft position the most? Which one is going to fall short of their draft position the most? We'll break that down. So we'll get a little feel for what the expectations are for these players. Who wins the Mack Lee Hill Award? That's the Rookie of the Year for the Kansas City Chiefs. Where could the Chiefs still use some help? We'll also take a look at the rest of the AFC West. How did they do? It's coming up right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. How about it? Always like to start with what we learned from the exercise, diving deep into these players. We've talked about each one of the players. Now we're talking about what they're going to have to do for the Kansas City Chiefs to be a success. Sam, what'd you learn from this little exercise here?
Well, we're going to get into every individual player to answer that question, but to me, it all hinges on what Josh Simmons can bring. Like if Josh Simmons is your franchise left tackle for the next 8 years, if he plays on a rookie contract for 5 years and, cheap money for 4 and plays like a franchise left tackle, I'd like to get something out of the rest of the draft if I'm the Chiefs, but it's already a successful draft. If I got a franchise left tackle out of it, picking 31, ended up picking 32, obviously. Look, I mean, we talked about the risk that Josh Simmons associated with Josh Simmons, but it still all hinges on him, even if that is a risky pick.
How about you, Jeff? Diving through it, what was your takeaway?
That there aren't that many players that you expect to be immediate contributors, or what's the right word to say is, or primary contributors. Like you look at a lot of these guys, look like they might just be rotational pieces or guys who fit into depth situations. But I think Sam's right. I think Josh Simmons is the key to this. And I actually don't think it's not going to be a success if he's not playing left tackle. I think if he ends up being a right tackle, if he ends up just being a good player for you, it's still a positive. So you can always take another shot next year or the year after that at left tackle. But yeah, he certainly is the key to the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. We are going to break it down player by player, so we'll get a idea of what each individual guy's got to accomplish. Josh Simmons is huge. I won't repeat that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. You can make up for it if he bombs or is hurt. Then you're going to have a phenomenal class below. I'm ready to be called a homer, right? Like I liked the draft. I totally saw it different from you, Jeff. I got to be honest with you. Like I don't see it as a bunch of special teams guy. I don't see it as.
I don't see it as special teams guys.
Well, no. I'm not saying you. I'm going beyond what you said. I'm going.
And I think Jeff, you're referring to just year one, right?
Yeah. Just guys, you're trying to project them out. Like a lot of the guys they have are very specific roles, not like guys, oh, this guy's going to be a star or going to be a.
Totally agree. Like that to me, I hear OmarrNOrman-Lott. Like, and that's going to be the one that I have the biggest question on for me as the second round pick, where they took him. And that was my thought process coming into the evaluation, and it's my thought process coming out. But I actually came away thinking they've got a lot of guys that I think are going to play and going to play a lot. And I think this has the potential. It's going to be very disappointing to me if this isn't a good draft class. And I got to be careful, I think, when I talk about it on the radio, because my expectation is that they did really well. And so I'm saying that, and I always talk about one of the things I think is important for me as a talk show host. I think all of us as media members, we get asked, or our job is to evaluate, to write what was the grade or what was good, what was bad. We write it, we evaluate it, we end up being totally wrong on it. And so then we get down on it. And was it more that I misevaluated what it was? Like, I'm going to have to be careful to not be real critical of this draft class because I have high expectations. I think it's really good. I thought it was good coming in. I think it's good. I think they're all going to get on the field on the offense and defensive side, with the exception of Brashard Smith. I'm not convinced that he's going to play a lot at running back. Certainly not early. I don't think he's going to play much at all early at running back. And I don't love that part of it. So I got to be careful. If he's a great kicker, punt returner, not being like down on him and negative because like, well, all he does is do special teams. Right. So I did. But my biggest takeaway was I'm pretty positive about this draft class. I think they did a really nice job. I like what they got from these players. So I think it I'm worried that I will come in, and if they don't take the world by storm, I'll be like super negative about it. Right?
Oh, you will. I don't think there's any question about that.
So you mean you're referring to year one then when you say they're going to play a lot?
I do think a number of them are going to play a lot in year one, and we'll let's dive into it because I think it'll talk about what we think the expectation is. Let's start with Josh Simmons. Sam, what constitutes a successful draft pick for Josh Simmons?
If he's starting and you're not looking to replace him, and I don't think that has to be year one. But look, I think the reason you have to have the qualifier
starting where,
I think right or left tackle. I don't see this big discrepancy in those two positions. There's definitely a discrepancy in those two positions, and there's probably more so with Patrick Mahomes than most quarterbacks. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is very much, and I've broken this down on this podcast and columns at the Star, that the spots he can see, he can adjust to. The spot he can't see needs to be the one that's best protected, and the Chiefs haven't had that since Eric Fisher left. So, like, obviously, if he's starting at left tackle, it's a much bigger success than right. But the reason I think you have to have the qualifier and they're not looking to replace him is they started Kingsley Suamataia at left tackle. They started Wanya Morris at right tackle. They look to replace those guys immediately. So it has to be a solid starter, and I don't think it has to be – left tackle is different than I think most positions. Like if it's a quarterback that you're taking in the first round, I think you got to say he's a top half of the league guy. I think if he's a top 18, 19 left tackle for you, like that's what Patrick Mahomes needs. He needs just like mediocrity at that position, and they haven't even been able to get that for him the past couple of years.
I think that's interesting. Jeff, how about you? How's your view on him?
If he's healthy, I think it starts there. I think if he's able to be a healthy player, this knee injury that he has is not a long-term lingering thing. I think that is going to allow him to do the things Sam is talking about. But that's really the gamble here is, did they make a mistake or did they get it right? Because the chances you're taking is, do we trust our medical people with what they've seen with this guy's knee? Because 31 other teams said they couldn't do that. And so for me, it starts with what's
well, I just want to clarify. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jeff. I'm just making notes on this. So as we look back on it, like he has to be healthy for this pick to be like if he's
not healthy.
I just don't want to put words in your mouth.
If he's not healthy, then I think it's just it didn't work out. I mean, it was a mistake to take him. That's really what we're betting on here, right? We're not betting on is he a good player. We're betting on can he be healthy enough.
Are we always betting on if he's going to be a good player though? Like you can get excited. I mean, about a guy's bust. I mean. So,
well, I guess the point I'm making here is if he's not healthy, then you had options to go other ways in the draft with players who were healthy.
And if he is healthy, he needs to do what?
I think he needs to be a solid player for you. I don't think he needs to be a Pro Bowl left tackle. And I always I've been asked this question a million times this week. I tell people all the time, there's a lot of guys who get drafted with great resumes and great accomplishments, and they don't become great left tackles. It's a very hard position to play. But if he can find a spot at right tackle, I think that's a good thing. But ultimately, he's got to be something for you, and that starts with his knee being right.
Yeah. That's interesting. I noted that he's got to be a 4-year starter at offensive tackle. I'll take right or left, but I will only take right if left is solved. He cannot be Jawaan Taylor, right? I don't. The gamble part, like I understand, like if he's healthy, we understand there's a gamble, but the reason you take the gamble is to solve left tackle. You don't take the gamble to come away with, Andrew Wiley. Right? Like Andrew Wiley's not good enough to gamble on a first-round pick for exactly what you said, Jeff. Take somebody else. There were other edge guys. There were other players you could have taken, and you've been able to find guys. Jawaan Taylor's been a very expensive guy to play on the right side that they seemingly have no thought of him moving to the left. Like,
but isn't that part of the point, Soren? I mean, you say you can't beat Jawaan Taylor. Jawaan Taylor's a $20 million player.
He's a $20 million player because they gave him $20 million, not because he's necessarily been worth $20 million. Listen, I'm going to throw up in my mouth a little bit when I say this. All right. And it pains me. And I don't think he's in the chat room. So it's a good time to bring it up. I don't see Tommy in here. So, Tommy, I don't. There's no Tommy in the chat room. So it's a perfect time for me to say it. Listen, he has harped about how, and from the get-go, now he's also had, Willie Gay going on to be Lawrence Taylor. Right, I'm exaggerating, but being more of an edge guy, that hasn't happened. But Tommy, we'll give credit when somebody gets it right. Tommy beat a drum for a long time that you're giving all this money to Jawaan Taylor, and you could have got Andrew Wiley for less just to keep him in place. And are they better at right tackle than they were with Andrew Wiley? I mean, it's a tough question to answer because when he doesn't get a penalty, yes. Right, if he lines up in a proper spot and doesn't get a penalty, Jawaan Taylor's a better player. With the penalties, I don't know. I could look at PFF grades. I think they're actually kind of negligible, but they're paying a lot more for Jawaan Taylor. So that's my point. You felt like you didn't have the guy in Wiley, so you spent a bunch more money than what it took to keep Andrew Wiley, and you got Jawaan Taylor. Like you can't. That was a bit of a swing and miss for them. And so my point is, and you got a guy that you're giving all that money to, and you can't even in the most dire of straits, you cannot put him over on the left side. And I do think both tackles are important. I don't think left tackle has fallen down to right tackle's value. I think right tackle has risen up to near left tackle's value. But I still think left tackle is more important for a right-handed quarterback. And they have not solved it. And they're gambling to solve that spot. So I'm okay if the reason we're all saying left or right is because we're thinking Jalen Moore might solve left tackle, correct?
I'm not saying that.
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, okay, but
we're saying that if he doesn't work out at left tackle, he can move to right side, and if he can be a good player there, that's still a positive for the team.
Right. Penny Sewell is not a disaster, but Penny Sewell is not necessarily, in my opinion, worth the number 5 pick where he went because they moved him to right tackle. And that's what I'm at.
But he'd be worth the 32nd pick, though, for sure.
He would be worth because he's the best right tackle. And if what we're talking about is the best right tackle in football, yes, I will be. If Mitchell Schwartz is what the Chiefs get, I will sign off on this. But I think, I'll amend it. I said can only be good at right tackle if they solve left tackle, or he's one of the best.
Hey, we got him to switch one already,
right
Jeff.
We're
one player into this, so we got him to modify.
Yeah. Pretty soon we talk about left guard. If he could play left guard,
no modification.
What if he plays tight end?
No.
What if he's all pro?
No. If he's all pro right tackle, okay. I'm down with that. Like, but I just you're trying to solve left tackle. I do think right tackle is more important than it used to be, but left tackle is still more important. I just the health thing. It'll still be a bomb. You gamble, and sometimes you lose all your stack, Sam. You know that. It doesn't mean you won the tournament. It's a justifiable move, but it's not a great move when it's all said and done, right? That's how I'll view it. Let's move on to OmarrNOrman-Lott. Sam, what do you got for what makes him a success?
Yeah, this one's tougher just because I think he's more of a niche player. So I think, it's a rare thing with a defensive tackle. You're going to be looking at sack numbers. Like if he's a guy who gets you 6 sacks, that's pretty good for a defensive tackle, second round pick. So to me, that's about the cutoff. Is he a guy who's consistently creating pressure in the defensive backfield? And I don't know what that is as far as numbers go, but I think you could say there's 60 of those guys who play at any given start, for 64 of those guys who start, right? So I think if he's in the top 30 of pressures, a couple times during this rookie contract, like, you'll take that, and especially assigning it next to Chris Jones. So I think that's probably where I'd fall.
So how do you want me to define it for you?
Let's say if there's a couple seasons where he's top 30 to 35 and pressures.
Okay. Jeff?
That's probably pretty lofty, by the way, but that's what I'll say.
But he is a second round pick.
Yeah, he's a second round pick. Yeah.
I think there's a tendency to want to bring your grade down because of how far down the D tackle list he was, but this is still a second round pick. Bottom of the second round, I don't view it the same as a guy who went 34, but he's not a fourth. So Jeff, how about you?
I will say if he's an upgrade on Tershawn Wharton. And so for me, I agree with Sam. It's a hard guy to try to make sense of because you don't know how much he's going to play. You don't know the situations he's going to be in. But I think ultimately, he's got to be somebody who's able to provide consistent pressure for you, take some pressure off Chris Jones, and be somewhat disruptive. And again, I can't anticipate how much he's going to play. And it's always hard with guys who are going to be in this kind of role because you just don't know how many. You just don't know what kind of impact they can have. It's dependent on who they're playing against, right? If he's playing against Josh Allen, I don't think he's going to be tearing the world on fire. But if he's playing against Aiden O'Connell, it might be a different story. So I will go with an upgrade on Tershawn Wharton as being the baseline for him.
I like that one. Yeah.
I think that's a great. I wish I'd have thought of how you put it there. You're investing a lot more in Tershawn Wharton than in Norman-Lott.
And by the way, Wharton was 31st in the league in pressures last year for interior linemen. So right on that same bar.
I would say basically the same thing. I think we're on the same page. I know pressures it's a harder stat to find. So for people that just look at sacks, old school, sacks isn't the best measuring stick, but it's how did Eric used to put it? Sacks when he used it on a different stat. I can't remember his passer rating. He would say it's not the best metric for measuring it, but we all know the scale. Like we can all kind of it's ingrained in us, and I think that's where sacks are. And I think you're right. In any 1 year, I don't like measuring a guy on sacks, but I put down that he needs 25 sacks in 4 years. Like he was.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot, but he's a second round pick, and he was drafted for his pass rushing. Right? And so if he had 25 sacks, what did Tershawn Wharton have the last 4 years?
He's only got 13 and a half in his career in 5 years.
In 5 years, but one of those years he was hurt, right?
Yeah.
So,
but for part of the year, I think he played, 5 games maybe or something like that. So he's played 72 games and he's had 13 and a half sacks. This last year was the first year he had more than 2 in a year.
Yeah. But he was a project.
He was an undrafted guy. Yes, there absolutely should be a different bar between OmarrNOrman-Lott, but he's also a guy that got paid $15 million.
He is, and his best football may be ahead of him. Joe Horn didn't do a ton for the Kansas City Chiefs, but he blew up when he went to the Saints, right? The Chiefs kind of developed him, and then the Saints used him better and took advantage of the development. I think, and maybe that'll be the case with Tershawn Wharton and the Chiefs. This is the victim of being a championship team and having that kind of cap. I just, for me, in the second round, and when what you're talking about, the only thing you're talking about is the fact that he rushes the passer, then that's the only thing I can grade on. It can't be he did all right against the run. They drafted him to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I guess it's just that your thing doesn't allow him to have a growing curve or a learning curve at all.
He's got 4 years.
Well, 25 sacks,
6 sacks a year.
Yeah. You're at 6.5 sacks a year. Tershawn Wharton had 6.5 this last year, and we all think he had a pretty good year. Well, like I said, he got paid $15 million. So the Panthers obviously thought he had a good year. I think the rest of the NFL thought he had a good year. And the requirement to get to 25 in 4 years is that he does that all 4 years.
Chris Jones is going to be gone at some point during his tenure here, correct? So I'm my look is
that's going to make it harder for him. By the way,
my look is that he. Well, I think they do. I think if there's something to be critical of Steve Spagnuolo's defense, it's that it's garnered. Everything is about Chris Jones getting sacks. I think there's too much. Like, let's make sure Chris gets his guy, and how about Chris works on the toughest guy on the board, and Tershawn Wharton has a chance to beat the lesser guy. Like, I don't think you always have to find the worst guy in the line and put your best guy there, because I think then you know where he is. Yeah. And I also think when I see Chris Jones wandering up the line, how do we have any kind of other than just beat your guy up the field if he's right before the snap picking where he's going to go? I'm happy to have Steve Spagnuolo explain to me the strategy behind that and why it's very effective. But a lot of times I see it and it doesn't seem effective to me. But, so yes, I'm standing by it. He's drafted to rush the quarterback. He's not going to play against the run by all accounts. Most people don't think he's going to be very good against the run. So if he's not getting to the quarterback, why did you take him? I'll stand by that one.
If he's got 25 sacks to 4 years, he's going to give a $90 million contract.
Yeah, it's like, I totally agree with all of your rationale. I'm just saying it's a high number.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what are we doing here? Are we just handing out participation ribbons?
Not for 25 sacks. We're not.
Yeah, that's it.
We're handing out a hell of a lot more.
I'll tell you can get 25 sacks. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. If they were pass rushers, they would do it. It will make your parking lot beautiful. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's move on. Let's go to round 3 here for the Kansas City Chiefs. Ashton Gillotte, Sam. What makes Ashton Gillotte a successful pick?
So the wrinkle in this one to me, and by the way, we're live, guys. The wrinkle in
asking
during the commercial break, I always get a chance to peek at the comments, and we're live. The wrinkle in this pick is that the Chiefs need this, but I've recorded in that spot because people asking about Stren's desk. It's sunlight. He gets some sun.
Yeah. It's a cloud. Like if we're sitting here, who that's in Kansas City? Look outside. Do you see the sun blasting away over there? I mean, it's dark right now. I don't know what to tell you.
So the thing with Ashton Gillotte, that the wrinkle to me is that they kind of need him to be a starter next year because Mike Dan is going to be gone. You know, they exercised the option on George Karlaftis. We don't know what his future holds beyond that yet, but he might be the only guy who's like guaranteed to be on your roster in 2 years at that position. So I actually went more the sack numbers this time just to try and mix it up and not have everything associated with pressures. And I've got 20 sacks for Ashton Gillotte. And by the way, I grade these guys on the curve of being late first rounders. So I have to grade him on the curve of being an early third rounder. Okay. So the way I arrive at 20 is to get 3 as a rookie, 5 in your second year, and then be a six sack per season guy. And for a third round pick, an early third round pick, I think that's a solid bar to have. So I've got
20 sacks.
20 sacks in the 4 years.
Okay. I like it. All right, Jeff.
I'll stay with my comp theme here. The early version of Frank Clark. I'll say when he got here, when he was in Seattle, he was not, especially in Seattle, he was not the primary guy. He was part of a pretty good defense, but he was a guy who could create problems for for opposing offensive lines, they have to find somebody who can be a successful bookend to George Karlaftis. They haven't found it in Mike Dana. They haven't found it in FAU. Amenahu's been hurt. If this guy becomes that, and I think Sam's sacks totals are good. I think I'd go with that. But I think if he's just somebody who can be disruptive consistently and make them pay for double teaming Chris Jones and whatever happened with Karlaftis, I think it will be a success. And I think he will be a starter too. So I do think he'll have opportunities to be that.
Okay. I've got 25 sacks, Sam. I'm putting a number out there again. 25 sacks, and he has to start at defensive end for 2 years. Right? Like he's got to round into being a starting player. You know, and again, it's aggressive and they usually fall short. But my goal by round, first round, start immediately. Second, unless you're a quarterback. Second round, start sometime in that first year. Third round, start sometime in your tenure. You can be a rotational guy. You know, these guys are going to get a chance to play because the Stars and Jags approach means they have to get on the field. And when they don't, you see the problems that Felix Anudike-Uzomah creates. And I also think, like we're saying, what's going to be a success?
Yeah,
right?
and it's not like a hard line. It's not like if he gets 24, it's not a success. Like
right. If he gets 24 and has a mountain of pressures, and meanwhile George Karlaftis has blossomed into 14 sacks on the other side because they work great in tandem. Yes, I mean we're just giving kind of a parameter. It's funny to hear you say that because on Bold and Daring, you didn't. I was like, well, I'm picking him for 1,050, but if he gets to 975, oh no, you were hypercritical.
I think the Bold and Daring has a different cutoff.
Okay, that's fair. But I do agree with you. Like this is kind of the vibe of what we're looking for. But I think he's going to get a chance to play. They have the opening. I think Mike Dana is going to be out. Felix Anudike-Uzomah is going to be out. The path to play is there. So this pick needs to work. I mean, this was a need pick. And again, listen, most draft picks are going to fall short of what makes them a success because most guys don't get re-signed. That's why right now, 4 years later, there are only 10 players, 2 of which are special teamers. There are only 8 guys on offense and defense that were on this roster 4 years ago. Right? So it's hard. Most draft picks will disappoint. That's just the reality of where it is. I don't think it's a problem to have a high bar there, but 25 sacks and starts for 2 years. That's where I'll go for him. All right, let's go to Nohl Williams, cornerback, California. Sam, what constitutes success for Nohl Williams?
I think by year 2, because you're going to be losing Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, and Nazeeh Johnson. By the way, I think they really do lose all those guys. It's not. I'm not just saying these.
They should.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, this is how you determine whether or not.
I think they can now.
Yeah.
I think now you can do it because you got this kid.
Yeah. So that's actually where I'm going with this is you can walk away from all 3 of those guys because of Nohl Williams as a guy that you can play. So our determination when we do our free agency next year about what they should do with Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, and Nazeeh Johnson, we're all saying Nohl Williams can be a guy. And therefore you can walk away from him because that's the reason you draft him is so that you can walk away from having to pay this position. And so to me, that's what constitutes a success. If you see enough from him in year 1 that you say, I feel like I don't need to re-sign and pay big money to any of my existing players, that's a successful draft pick. That is the purpose of the draft itself.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm kind of similar on that one. Jeff, what do you have that makes this a successful pick?
At least a 3-year starter. I'd love to see him start in year 1 if he's good enough, because I think that there's opportunities there with the group that Sam has mentioned. And look, he's not a fast guy.
Just to clarify, Jeff, you've got 3 starting cornerbacks then, right? Since they usually do play the slot 2 outside.
Yeah. He finds a spot there somewhere.
Yeah.
But I love the ball hawking. The 14 career interceptions, 7 last year. Anybody who can find the ball and create turnovers in the secondary is going to be helpful to this group. And I just feel like from what people say, like he's a guy that stands out. I think he and the next guy we're going to talk about stand out as the 2 most likely guys to be star level players in this draft, or at least be big time guys for this team. So I'm going to go with him being a 3-year starter and potentially challenging for a spot this year.
I put 3-year starter at corner because of everything. I totally agree. I could just put ditto down behind what you two guys said, because I think the path is there to get on the field. And, with 3 guys probably coming off the roster next year, Fulton coming off after 2 years, McDuffie's going to be there for the 5th year, we think, or do they trade him? Is that the guy that they've got the tag on and they say, look, we can get massive value for him. This is our chance to pick up picks. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think because of McDuffie's youthful age, how young he was when they got him, that they're going to sign him and keep him. But there's going to be a path for a lot of playing time, and he needs to be the guy to grab it. Like, it's going to be wide. It's going to be wide open. And I think the Mike Dana contract is because Felix Anudike-Uzomah failed. So if we're watching Jalen Watson come back at 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 million, whatever it takes to keep him back, this kid failed, or Christian Fulton failed, right? I'm not going to say that one of those guys coming back is all on him, but we can agree something's gone wrong if they're bringing one of those corners back for $8 or $9 million a year. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page on that one. All right, Jalen Royals, your big hit in the draft, Sam. You called it. They landed him.
And Jeff.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. That's right. Jeff.
We're only going to give Jeff credit if this guy stinks.
That's
well,
right.
the only reason I don't remember that Jeff nailed it as well is because he doesn't beat the drum as loudly as you do, Sam.
That's his problem. That's his problem.
He just
That's right. Yeah, Sam's got more Dion in him.
So you guys will be for this exercise for Jalen Royals, because to me the rest of this the rest of this spot is harder to get definitive statistics. It's not hard for a wide receiver to match him up to definitive statistics. So I went to the draft 4 years ago. So that's a 2021 draft that played in 21, 22, 23, and 24. They've played 4 seasons. Jalen Royals gets picked at 133 overall. To get somebody, a wide receiver that's picked 133 or later, the most yards over 4 years any wide receivers had for 133 pick or later?
133 or later, I would assume is
for 4 years ago. So the guys that have played
exactly 4 years.
The 21 NFL draft, those guys.
That class. That's not fair to just make it that class.
It's the only one. It's the only one where I can look and say the career without. I mean, this could have turned into a 3 hour. It could have turned into a 3 hour exercise and say, what did you do in your first 4 years?
Are you committed to the effort or not? I mean,
do you want to answer the question or not? What 2021?
Well,
pick 133 or later, because they've just completed their rookie contract, the most yards that anyone's had at that.
I know, because I can't remember who all was in the draft class 4 years ago, so I have
nobody's had 700 yards in that career.
In any one season or total?
No, career. No wide receiver like Noah Gray is the actual answer to that, but he's a tight end. He's had 1,077 yards for his career. That's the most receiving yards for anyone at that position, drafted at that spot or later. I want to put into context what the actual expectations for that pick should be. Having said that, I've got 1,600 yards in 4 years, I think would be a success for Jalen Royals. I think he goes beyond that. If you're asking my prediction,
that's low bar there.
If you're asking my prediction, I think he goes beyond that. But, I think I argued for years that McCole Hardman was not this bust that people had thought him out to be. I didn't think he was some sort of incredible success, but I just didn't think, I thought it was exaggerated for people to say that he was this huge bust at this position. He never got 700 yards in a season. So I that was sort of what I debated. Can Jalen Royals get 650 yards in one of these seasons? I think that's a good 4th round pick, but I think 1,600 yards when you go through it is more than double what anyone in this 2021 class did. I did go back to, Amon-Ra St. Brown was taken earlier in the 4th round. He's obviously had a terrific career. I think he's near 5,000 in that. And, as you guys are talking, I'll go back in 2020 and just see what those guys are total. But just keep in mind
Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 2nd round pick, though, wasn't he?
Keep in mind that would be over 5 years and not.
He was a 3rd rounder.
No, he was a fourth round. He was a fourth round pick.
Is he fourth?
112 overall, fourth round pick, has almost 5,000
Because
yards.
I was going to say, well, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, the Rams seem to be able to find wide receivers low, and that's why if you open it up to everybody who's gone down there are hits. Antonio Brown, there are hits down there, and I'm not saying they have to hit on
Romeo Doubs was taken in a very similar spot. He's only played 3 years. He's had 1,700 yards in 3 years. He was taken 132. Royals is at 133. So my point is, like, this guy at best is going to be probably a 4 wide receiver for the Chiefs. If your 4 wide receiver can get 400 or 500 yards as a rookie, like, that's a really good season for a 4th round pick. But I think, to up it and be a little bit more bold, I think you could say 2,000 yards over 4 years for a 4th round pick is.
Oh, good.
That's a good 4th round pick.
Good, because that number you're going to hear in a minute. I'll just go right now. I have 2,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Is what I think.
In year one?
Yeah, in year one. Yes, that's in year one. No, for the 4 years, and for the reason, and again, my scale is tough, but I think that's what mine's more what you're trying to get to and what you need to get to, and you're going to fall short on some, but you need to hit. And let's be honest, somebody needs to blow through these. These are reasonable expectations, right? We could talk about the sacks, but there are guys that have gone late that go on to be 75 sack guys in their career, right? Like, we're not putting a lid on what they can do. And by the way, if Ashton Gillotte would go on to be, Tamba Hali in his career, it makes it that's how you live with the fact that you end up with Sky Moore in Jalen Royals, right? That's what makes it work. Like, somebody can bust through and be a star, and that will help elevate, the misses that you have if they're those true difference makers. Because it allows you to play Jags over the guys that you drafted. So, but I've got 2010. So, how did you define Royals, Sam? Just to be clear.
I'll go 2,000 over the 4 years.
Okay. And
because I am looking a little bit more through these other ones. I mean, look, if he, and I know Jeff needs to go as well, but if he turns into KJ Osborne, let's say KJ Osborne's a 5th round pick. He's got 650. Now, KJ Osborne didn't have a catch as a rookie.
The Vikings, if people don't know.
Yeah, didn't have a catch as a rookie. Next 3 years, he's got 655 with 7 touchdowns, 650 with 5 touchdowns, 540 with 3 touchdowns. That's a successful 4th round pick. If that's the type you can get out of Jalen Royals, that's a successful 4th round pick.
Yeah, how about this? Flatlander says Albert Wilson, although a UDFA, he wasn't drafted, had almost 1,600 yards in 4 years with the Chiefs. That's not bad. I mean, if he had an Albert Wilson-like effect, Albert Wilson made some plays here and there when the opportunity presented itself. I think that's pretty fair. Jeff, how are you going to quantify it?
I will say I'll go with your 2,000-yard comp because I want to put numbers on some of these things just to be consistent with you guys. But I think he should be at least a 2-year starter. And I think that I like him more than I like Xavier Worthy coming out of college. I think he's a more complete receiver. He's a bigger body. He can probably do more things for you in more parts of the field. And I think that depending on what happened with Rashee Rice, he could take Rashee Rice's job. If Rashee Rice wants a bunch of money when this contract comes up, or this drag racing thing becomes a huge issue, I just think he's in a great position to really blow up. And I like that Sam referenced Amon-Ra St. Brown because he went that low because he got hurt in his senior year. And his career is very similar to Jalen Royals' career in that he had a big junior year. He only played 6 games his senior year. He was a much more highly touted player than Jalen Royals ever was coming into college. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown was like a top 5, top 10 player in the nation and coming out of high school. So there was a lot of pedigree there. But I think Royals, to me, is one of could be a steal of this draft, and certainly could be a really good player for this offense once they get say goodbye to Hollywood Brown and decide what to do with Rashee Rice.
James goes, success for some of these guys will be not having their name mentioned on this podcast.
Well, some of these guys may never be mentioned again on this podcast.
And they actually will have somewhat succeeded because they will live in anonymity as opposed to, can you believe what Sky Moore?
So just real quick, Soren, I did go back and look at 2020. Now, keep in mind, these are 5-year totals, not 4-year totals. We're judging on the rookie contract, which are 4-year totals. Darnell Mooney's a 5th-round pick, and he leads he's the first guy that appears that's not a 1st or 2nd-round pick on this. In fact, that's not a top 34 pick from the 2020 draft. He's a 5th-rounder. He's got 3,500 yards and 16 touchdowns in 5 seasons, 700 a year. Next up is Gabriel Davis, very similar draft slot to Jalen Royals, just 4 picks off, basically 3,000 yards and 19 touchdowns. So, again, that's over 5 years. If he turns into Gabe Davis, you'll take it. Yeah. You'll take it.
Yeah. I agree. I think you'd be thrilled with that. He's got to make some plays, right? If he makes some big catches for touchdowns and big games, and the numbers are just okay, but he pops when the opportunity's there. I think we're all going to like it. Jeffrey Bassa, Sam, linebacker from Oregon. What constitutes success for Jeffrey Bassa?
I went similar here as I did cornerbacks, which is you're going to have linebacker decisions after this year. And so if your linebacker decisions can be based on the fact that it looks like Bassa can be a guy who, look, it's a linebacker position. They insist that Nick Bolton's a 3-down linebacker. So I don't think you can put this exact snap count on it because I think Leo Chenal does not play half the snaps, for example. But I think if he allows you to influence your linebacker decisions because you feel like he can be a guy that can take on a bigger workload a year from now, that's a terrific 5th-round pick. If you've got,
how did you put allows you to influence your?
Allows you to walk away from one of your linebacker decisions. Okay. You can walk away from Drue Tranquill and or Leo Chenal because this guy's ready to play and fill one of those 2 roles.
Okay. Yeah, it is harder to put a number to quantify the linebacker position. Jeff, what do you see?
He becomes a Drue Tranquill clone, an effective replacement for Drue Tranquill. He seems to have a skill set, being an ex-safety, that he can do a lot of things for you in pass coverage. He's clearly not somebody who is unable to play in the box and be successful as obviously a weak side linebacker, played inside linebacker at Oregon. He's got a lot of versatility to him. And so my guess is he'll be some kind of Swiss Army knife for Steve Spagnuolo. But the first step really is to have him move in the Drue Tranquill spot, probably as soon as after the season ends.
Yeah, I'm with you. I put 2-year starter and or special team standout. And I mean, like, he's like the special teams. You got to be like
over Jack Cochran.
You got to be, yeah, exactly. You got to be almost a Pro Bowl.
That's what I should have said. It allows you to not pay Jack Cochran $2 million a year from now.
They like Jack Cochran. I mean,
yes.
I'm going to tell you one of the things that I'm hearing as I talk to folks is like there is like I remember when Willie Gay was drafted. Like I remember quizzing some folks and like, is he a guy that could wear the green dot? And other teams, everybody I talked to was like, no, right? This kid, yes. And that's what
they said that publicly many times.
Yeah,
that he did this.
Yeah, that's one of the things that they like about him, and so I think he does, Jeff. I think, and that's what you got to be careful. Like hearing excitement about a player, like and making that what he has to get to. It's still a 5th-round pick, and that's why like if you end up just covering kicks, but you do that really well, then I think there is still productivity down here in the 5th round. But I think the path is there for him to be better. And I think he's linebackers kind of like running backs. You don't take them up in rounds 1 and 2 when you're an off ball. This is still a good spot because Jack Cochran's are guys that they're comfortable playing Jack Cochran, and he wasn't drafted. So when you get drafted, when a draft pick's used on you at the linebacker spot, you're expected to get on the field on defense. And that's one of the things as I look at this, I think all these guys that we've mentioned up till now are going to get on the field on the defensive side. So I've got 2-year starter, being the main path to this being a success. I agree exactly with what you said. He's got to be able to replace Chenal and or Drue Tranquill. All right, Brashard Smith, running back SMU. Sam, what do you have? 4,500, 5,000 yards rushing.
You mentioned the fact that you could get caught down maybe what these guys need to be. I thought the Chiefs should have come out of this draft with a better running back prospect than what they did. I totally understand why they didn't. And like I said in the last podcast, I credit them for when the 5th round comes, they see what they had as a late 3rd round grade on Bassa and say, you know what, we need a running back, but this is our by far best player on the board. we're actually going to abide by this best player available thing. I credit them for that because I think that's how good teams draft well.
Yes.
But the effect of that is they don't come out with the running back prospect that I thought that they would in this draft. So this is how you could get down a bad road and say, okay, well, this is the running back they got, so he needs to be that guy. And to me, if Brashard Smith is a terrific kick returner and you know that's what he's going to be, you'll take that in a 7th round pick, really. I think he's got to get on the field as well, because I also need to grade this based on the fact that I don't like the Chiefs running backs. And if you can't get in the mix with this group, that's not a great sign for your ability as a running back. So I'm going to say he needs to be one of the 2 kick returners as a rookie, and that he also has to be at least in the offensive mix as a running back. I don't think he needs to be the starter. I don't think he needs to be the obvious 3rd down back, but he can't be a guy who's playing 2 snaps on offense. So even if it's just 10 snaps, like that's a decent amount in the mix as a rookie. So that's where I've got the bar for Brashard Smith. But like I said, for all the reasons I outlined, I think there's opportunity to be more, because I don't think it's a great running back.
What about for 4 years?
I didn't grade him out as much as 4 years, just because running back is such a tricky spot to where maybe they should get a running back in next year's draft too.
Right.
It's much harder to predict what's going to be the influence of the rest of the group.
Okay. Jeff?
I will say, I'm not going to get too big on the special teams part of it. I'll say Jerick McKinnon light. And so this is
Jerick
McKinnon light.
Light or like?
Yeah,
okay, I couldn't tell whether it was light or light.
No,
like
light. Yeah. Not Jerick McKinnon, but a lesser version of Jerick McKinnon. I just think, Sam has made this point often throughout the draft process. This is a deep running back class, and it was an opportunity to get a running back who could help your room. And so I'm expecting this guy to help the room somehow. Like, he just can't be a kick returner for you. He has to be somebody who can actually impact your offense. He's got great speed. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but I think they have to find a role for him because, again, I just don't – I'm with Sam. I don't like that room at all with what's in it. And if he can't help you, then this is a wasted pick. And so I think he's got to be something in the pass game for me to be happy with this pick.
Okay. I said 1,500 total yards and an effective kick returner. I think they're drafting him mostly on the kick part, but I'm with you guys. I think he's got to get into the mix at running back because the door is wide open. I mean, they are coming back at it this year with a 7th round pick, a guy who was on his couch to start last year, and a guy who didn't play last year. Right? That's what's in front of him. I mean, we're going to talk about what they need. Guess what? Guess what spot we're going to come to? I mean, I think it's pretty easy to see where we're going to be going on what some of their needs are. But yeah, I think the kick return part is a big part of it for him. A big part of making a great first impression is your parking lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete can help you out there. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's talk a little bit about which one of the guys is going to exceed their draft position. Or let's save that. Let's save that because this took longer than we thought. So let's wrap with who's going to be the Mack Lee Hill, because you can exceed your draft position and not end up being this guy. So who do we think is ultimately going to be the Mack Lee Hill Award winner? That is for the Rookie of the Year. Sam, do you got who it is?
Yeah, I want to, as you know, Soren, it really, and this is your favorite thing, is I provide all sorts of context before giving you my answer. But I'll give you the answer first. I've got Jalen Royals. And my rationale for it is that this is a year one award. It's not based on where you get picked. It's just purely who is the best rookie. I can't be as confident that Josh Simmons is going to come right in and be a week one starter. There's a possibility. I mean, we have to acknowledge there is a possibility that Josh Simmons does not play as a rookie. I don't think it's the most likely thing. We have to acknowledge it's a possibility. And so as you go through this award, I think you're trying to decipher playing time. And Ashton Gillotte's playing behind George Karlaftis for sure. Is at best going to be in a rotation that includes, Mike Dana as well. And OmarrNOrman-Lott, just because of the lack of snaps he played at Tennessee, I can't be super confident that he's going to put up stats also that wow people enough. And I just think Jalen Royals will be enough part of the offense, whether that's 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, something like that, to where Simmons is the pick you go with if you know he's going to play. I can't be super confident that he's going to come in and be a week one starter. So that's why I went with Jalen Royals.
Okay. Jeff?
Yeah, I'm picking the same guy for a lot of the same reasons. Like I said at the start of the show, that there's a lot of guys in this group, in this class, who are going to get on the field, but they're going to be in limited roles. And this is a guy who, it'd be between him or Nohl Williams. And Nohl Williams has got more people in front of him. I think that this guy could take snaps away from Hollywood Brown. I don't trust Hollywood Brown to play a whole season. I expect Rashee Rice to not play an entire season. And so I think there are opportunities for him to come on the field and do some things. And again, you look at his skill set, you look at what he did in college, you look at his size. I think he can do a lot of different things in a lot of different positions for this team on offense. So I think he will be that dude.
So if he's Mack Lee Hill Award winner, how close is he to getting to the 2,000 yard mark we all put there? Like what stats do you envision in winning?
I went low. Yeah.
So where you and I really differ on this rookie class, Soren, is I think all these guys will play. I can't predict that any of these guys are going to play half the snaps this year. And so therefore, like what position can best put up stats only being on the field a third of the time?
I think that is a little bit misleading because defensive linemen don't play 100% of the snaps, right? Chris Jones plays 90 some odd percent, but even that's, frankly, it's too many. And that's one of the things Norman-Lott needs to do is make it to where they don't have to play Chris Jones as many snaps. I do agree with you, but like you can be 75, 80% of George Karlaftis. If Gillotte can play, he will be the guy. He will find a way onto the field. Because what's in front of him is not good enough. Okay,
yeah.
So there is.
He was the second guy I considered for this, by the way.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's I hear what you're saying, but at wideout, it's crowded. That's why I don't have him. Like I think there are other guys that are in front of him.
It was crowded the last 2 years too. Look who was the best rookie.
That's fine, but I mean, I do think Rashee Rice will get his whenever he's on the field, and I think Xavier Worthy's good. So they're going to have something for Hollywood Brown. I don't see the path for Royals. Listen, Andy Reid, I'll come back to Andy Reid said, and this is a prediction thing, not like they need to do this for the team to win. This is a prediction. When Andy Reid comes out and says he's going to be ready to go at training camp, like that's not Andy Reid. Andy Reid's always we'll see. Now maybe he had a few pops. I don't know why. That's totally out of character for him. But it sounds to me like he's excited, like the medical reports are really good and that the guy's going to go. So I took the chalk. I took Josh Simmons.
He was excited for Anudike-Uzomah last year, and where'd that end up?
Yeah, agreed.
He's
100% fair.
He can do hyperbole pretty good.
No rebuttal whatsoever. I will not fight anything on the side of positivity on how Anudike-Uzomah worked out. I'm with you. But the only thing I would say is that's in the back of his mind as well. And he's still fired out. He'll be ready to go at training camp. Maybe,
Yeah, I mean, look, you picked
yeah.
the first rounder. It's not a crazy pick.
Exactly. Yeah. He's not gonna come out and say he's gonna be on the pup list.
Well, I'll say this:
I bet you're on the pup list.
Well, I'll put it this way. I will say this: like, it wasn't between him and Royals either. It was between him and Gillotte. That's the other guy that I think could win it. Like, if I'm wrong, I think it'll be Gillotte. I definitely don't think it'll be. I shouldn't say I definitely don't think. If I had to rank them in order of how to win this, 1 Simmons, 2 Gillotte, 3 Nohl Williams, 4 Jalen Royals, 5 Norman-Lott, 6 Brashard Smith, and 7 Bassa. I think Bassa is going to have a hard time getting on the field in year 1, right?
I thought there were 3 guys to pick from. I considered Simmons, and like I said,
who was the third then?
Gillotte. I think Gillotte has a path to play, and I also think as a defensive end to get this award. I mean, first of all, I don't know when they vote on it. I don't know whether the playoffs are included. You could have a guy like that comes up with a 2-sack game in AFC Championship, something like that. Like he could have. It's not going to stun me if Gillotte has 5 sacks as a rookie, and that might really stand out on this list.
Speaking of standing out, our great sponsors, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. They keep your parking lot safer, help you and your business avoid unnecessary delays. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot, and our friends at Northland Injury Law. If you have a case, if you've been hurt in an accident, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400 HURT. Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years. Again, call 816-400 HURT, HURT. For Jeff Chadiha of the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red Gold and Bold podcast.